Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. Today's guest is Tiffany Carter. Tiffany Carter takes the mystery out of making big money while doing something you love. She uses a magnetic combination of her clear-cut communication style that she developed as a TV news broadcaster for NBC and CBS. Her business savvy and proven strategies as a multi-millionaire entrepreneur and her intuitive ability to connect with women on a deeper level to uncover what's blocking you from achieving your dream life. She's a passionate female empowerment speaker and marketing sales specialist responsible for more than $100 million in sales transactions. Tiffany's zones of genius are helping women become financially free through education, empowerment, and proven straightforward business strategies. This multimillionaire entrepreneur went from a life of self-destruction to success, from abuse to abundance. Despite the odds being entirely against her, Tiffany's mission runs deeper than helping women create wealth. Her bigger purpose is to help women find their worth. Low self-worth equals low net worth. High self-worth equals high net worth. The name Project.me came to Tiffany while recovering from spine surgery 10 years ago. Tiffany spent years masking deeply buried pain by compulsively exercising, hence the spine surgery, and working to the point of emotional, spiritual, and physical bankruptcy. 4 years ago, a broken Tiffany finally surrendered to the God of her understanding and begged the universe for help. She was finally ready to face the buried demons of the past. For the first time, she felt light, free, with a renewed sense of purpose. She knew Project.me was the perfect platform to serve and support women in business. She wants women to remember the most exceptional project in your life is you. Putting yourself and your needs first isn't selfish. It's a necessary act of self-care and empowerment. Tiffany is the host of the educationally edgy podcast, Project.me. Today's episode is power-packed. We talked about the only way out of your struggle is through. You got to go through the fire to get to the other side. What is on the other side of fear? Bust through, break through to break free. Tiffany gives her tips. The energy you're putting out is probably the energy that you're getting back. What kind of energy are you putting out? Why it's important as a woman to have your own sense of independence and make your own money. And that surrender is just part of the process. Sometimes we have to surrender. We have to learn to surrender and let go. And why it's important to cut loose the things that no longer serve you. This episode was pretty powerful. We could have talked forever, you guys. I love Tiffany. She's just freaking amazing. And if you haven't already, make sure to check out her podcast. She gives so much great advice, business advice, and she has been through so much that I just think that she's healed through so many things that she can help others to heal as well. I am so excited to welcome Tiffany Carter to the Sisterhood of Sweat. Welcome.
Hello. I'm so excited to be invited into the sisterhood today.
Yeah, I immediately connected with you at Mommy Millionaire with your story and just your funny personality on the stage. I was like, I have to have this girl on my podcast, and here she is.
And you manifested it. You brought it right in, right? You
That's right.
If you don't ask, the answer is always no, right? So you are bold and you ask for what you want. And a lot of times it happens, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And today I was listening to Rachel Hollis, and she was talking on her podcast. She was answering a question from a guest, and not in the audience, but basically somebody had written into her. I think they DM'd her on Instagram, and they asked her a question. They were having such a hard time making a decision. And I know we all can get stuck when we're making decisions because we feel like it's like, life changing forever. We can never reverse it. We feel like, so we put so much stock into making a decision. Sometimes we get stuck. And she was talking to this guest, and she was from Saudi Arabia. And so you never know when you want something. Don't tell yourself, oh, I'm too small, I can't do that. That big guest won't ever read my question. They would never talk about it on the air. Of course they will. So she talked about it. Now I'm talking about it. And it's the same with getting Tiffany on the podcast. She is a multi-millionaire, you guys, self-made. And she used to be on the CBS morning show where she had her role, and she decided that wasn't for her. And here she is on my podcast, you guys. So you got to dream big. You got to take small steps. And she is going to dive into her story. It is very deep, so fasten your seatbelt.
That's a nice way of putting it. I like to say, listen, my story is like one of those Lifetime movies that it's like horrifying to watch, but you can't stop watching it. It's one of those. But I do use a lot of humor when I share my story because there's heaviness to it. But I've also had many, many years of healing. And what inspired me to even go so deep in my healing is so that eventually one day I could speak to this freely without any heaviness, so that other women don't feel so alone and they can hear my story. So I just want to preface it where I use humor. I'm not making light of it. It's just my way of delivering things.
Well, I love that. And I think that humor is very healing as well, because, I feel like bad things happen to each and every one of us. And if you can find the humor in it, it's halfway there to digging you out.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't have been able to have found it, obviously, for many years. And if I haven't done the work, but I don't take myself that seriously. Like, we can all calm down. The shit's not that serious. Like, most of the stuff in life is not that serious. And I agree with you. Like, laughing is healing, and it also breaks up like that heavy energy. I have, medication that I'm on for depression. So some people have a tendency to swing more towards anxiety. Mine is more so towards depression. And I find using humor lifts me up. And I like how that feels, and it lifts people up around me. So I love making people laugh. And really, most of the decisions, like you're saying, oh, you feel stuck, you guys, that's fear in disguise. It's just some more BS that your brain's spinning you. Should I do this? What if I do this? If I do that? There is pros and cons to either choice or any of your choices. And there's pros and cons to doing nothing. Some people stay stuck on certain things in their lives until the day they die. Right?
Yes. So was this kind of your antidote to making yourself feel better, to find the humor in it?
I think
Kind of
much later.
self-coping?
I think much later in my journey. I mean, so that you guys, you're like, well, what the hell's your story? Okay. So I was raised in a very wealthy family. So the second wealthiest family in an already wealthy neighborhood. My mom divorced my dad when I was 4. It was their second marriage. And starting at the age of 11, I was being sexually abused all the way through age 21 years old. And it wasn't just one person, although there was one main person that did that grooming process. For those of you who maybe aren't as well versed in how that works, bought me toys, befriended the family, all those things. Toxic people know how to weave their way into people's lives. And so I was very desensitized, I was taught so early that if you want love and attention, you have to give whatever someone wants, mind, body, and soul. So I was trained that way. And so then at school, what do you think I did? In middle school, I was the class slut. My name was written on the bathroom wall. I was, of course, made fun of and picked on. Of course, I didn't know any better. And I couldn't go to my mom. My mom's not well herself. My mom's anorexic still to this day in her 70s. And she's also a narcissist. So my mom was aware of the abuse. So she was not someone I could go to. My dad was, again, they're divorced. He was like a doormat, basically. He wasn't there for me in a different way. He wasn't going to stand up and fight for me. He was terrified of my mom. He was afraid if he stood up to her, she would cut me off from him. So I had nowhere to go. School wasn't safe. Home wasn't safe. I'm an only child. Both my parents are only children. So there was nowhere for me to go except in my own head by myself in my room with like my Legos and Barbies. And I was left to that. So I became, you can go one of two ways, in my opinion, and in my experience in working with a lot of women who have had sexual trauma or abuse, is you go like down the path of exploiting yourself, of being a sex worker, stripper, prostitute, whatever. You go down that road, or you go down this extreme overachiever route. Bingo, that was me.
That's me too.
And, if I'm going to pick one of two routes, I suppose the overachiever is the better way to go. However, that can kill you too. And it almost killed me because that's exhausting. It's totally exhausting. So I knew from age 13 that I wanted to be a newscaster. I think looking back, it's because newscasters, at least in my mind back then, tell the truth. People listened to them. No one heard me. No one listened to me. No one cared how I felt, what I had to say, if I was okay. But if I was a newscaster, they're forced to listen. And I never let that dream go. I mean, usually you ask a 13-year-old like what they want to be, they say one thing that usually isn't what they end up going to college for, certainly what their profession is. I never let that go. And even before I graduated college, I was hired at NBC, and then I went from NBC to CBS. And, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Unless you make it like you're like a Katie Couric,
Right.
the pay is pretty damn low, you guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
for sure.
it's not like, it's not as glamorous as people think it is. And you're not allowed to have secondary jobs, like a side hustle, because, you're representing the network and that wouldn't look good, yet they don't pay you. So most people wouldn't quit something like that, right? Like a lot of people.
I totally can relate because I had left the domestic abuse situation and I was raising two kids on my own, single mother. And I remember I was working at a gym and I was a group fitness coordinator and I was selling, gym memberships, that's hardcore sales, at least back then. And I remember I got a lot of newscasters. They would come in and they'd have the perfect hair, the perfect everything. But I profiled, and that's why I'm so good at podcasting, not to toot my horn, but I'm just saying, like, I profiled people. So that was my job. And I remember looking at the income and I thought, shoot, I thought these people made a lot of money. I made more. I made more.
Oh yeah. I mean, you guys, I made $17,000 a year. And I mean, that's it, because so many people covet those jobs that they can get away with that because you're on TV. And I just hit a point where it was like, first off, I was going to have a nervous breakdown on the air because I had stuffed all that abuse and I was in such denial. You can only stuff things for so long. Like I was starting to burst at the seams, and then I was starting to get almost paranoid. Like, I have hundreds of thousands of people, their eyes on me. And I was like, people can see you know, felt like I was, you know, dirty and disgusting and less than. I was like, people can see through my facade. And I started getting like paranoid, and I was like, this can't happen. And on top of it, I was like, if I want to really make an impact on this world, I've got to make more cash than this. Like, where is this really going? The likelihood of me becoming, you know, like a Katie Couric is slim to none. There's a better chance of me becoming Angelina Jolie, you know? So I was like, you know, can't do it. And I actually really didn't even give a 2-week notice because I was so afraid of having a nervous breakdown on the air. And I bounced on out of there.
Oh my gosh. Well, so you were afraid that the people could see. I grew up with a manic depressive mother who was suicidal, and you know, basically we had to keep that all secret. So the appearances were like everything. I mean, it started at a young age. I had to pretend everything was perfect on the outside while everything was falling apart on the inside. So I was a master at that. And so I can so relate to what you're saying, because I kept that, my personal life, private, separate from my work life, and nobody had any idea of what was truly going on. That's why I was such a master at keeping the secrets of abuse, sexual abuse, violence, all of it, because I started at a young age. I was trained.
Right. We get conditioned, and that's all we know. And we don't feel the weight that carries, because it's kind of like, if you know how like a lot of you guys are fitness and health professionals, like you work with people who've maybe been like overweight their whole lives. They don't realize how much, you know, and then you help them lose some weight, and they're like, oh my God, my joints don't hurt. I have so much energy. Well, they didn't know what they didn't know, because they've been carrying that so long. And that's the analogy that I like to use.
That's
When
a
you
good one.
grow up in trauma, the weight is so heavy, but I was used to the heaviness. It actually felt more foreign and scary to me as I went through, you guys, I mean, many years of therapy, like all forms of therapy, art therapy, group therapy, equine therapy, you name it. And once that started to lift and I started to heal, that felt so foreign and uncomfortable that it was really scary for me, because I was used to feeling that weight where I had to, like, you know, not be vulnerable and be perfect and hide behind that. And there was something like almost like a cloak of armor there, and I wanted it back, but yet I wanted it released. It was insane. It took a long time.
You were comfortable. That was your homeostasis. So when it's almost like the weight loss journey, because when people began to lose weight, they sabotage themselves because it's not comfortable. They're more comfortable in what they were in before, that homeostasis. So they seek to get back to the comfort versus just, you know, developing the new neural pathways where being happy is your homeostasis and being comfortable is your homeostasis.
I love that you made that point. I just had this conversation with a dear friend of mine today, because she also has had some abuse in her life, and as you're probably aware, it is extremely common for women who've been physically abused in some way, sexual, physical, that there's obesity. And so I work with women who've been sex trafficked. That's one of my big charities, Children of the Night. I help build safe houses. It is incredibly common to have this extra weight. And I used to think it was because they wanted to not seem attractive to the opposite sex. What I've learned is it's like wearing a weighted blanket. It's a literal fat barrier of intimacy between people. There is like, it's almost like when you wear like a big giant sweatshirt, you know, that's so comfy. It's like that. And to have that go away feels naked to people.
Oh, wow. That is such a good
And the last thing someone who's been abused, who's not done the healing work, wants to feel is exposed, naked, vulnerable, raw. Hell no, right? So I can see how that cycle would keep repeating itself. I mean, the sad thing is that it's such a high percentage of women who've experienced some sort of abuse or trauma incident, right? I
Oh,
mean,
it's
it's
truly a high
staggering.
number. If it's not verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, I mean, there's so much that that's why I just feel it's such an important mission to be helping women out there realize their self-worth and grow self-confidence and self-esteem, because you don't stay in those situations. When you recognize your worth, you get out of them.
Amen, sister. And that's what I told myself when I'm going through the excruciating healing journey. I made a promise to myself, and at that time, the universe, because I didn't believe in God at that time, because I thought God abandoned me, which is understandable. I knew there was something greater than myself, though. And I made a promise that, like, I get through this and I heal. I promised that I would use that to heal millions of others. And that's what would keep me going, was helping other women who were stuck in the shame, who were stuck hiding, who were stuck in low self-worth, and help show them it is totally possible. I had zero self-worth. I mean, the stuff that I did, even during therapy and stuff in my 20s, because therapy is not even enough. During my 20s, it was more abuse. I developed an exercise addiction. That's a form of physical abuse on oneself. I'm talking 4 hours a day. I'd have bruises all over me. I mean, it was insane. It wasn't until a few years ago that I really focused on working on that. And I still have that diseased mind in my brain. And it is self-abuse. It's conditioning. And I abused myself with men, allowing men to do things to me that I didn't even enjoy, or even as simple as being in relationships. And, we all know, we're ladies here, right? We all know, like, guys like want to, they want to have sex. And it's like, well, I never knew I had the option to say not tonight, or I'm not, I'm tired. I really thought that I had to say yes if you wanted to keep the guy and keep them happy.
Right.
That's a form of self-abuse. So this was
Right.
going on all the time. I had toxic people all over in my life. I was recreating my abuse in every which way, everywhere surrounding me. It was familiar. I had no self-worth. And like you said, once you develop self-worth, I say, like, I got to a point where then I started to like myself way before I loved myself. That took more time, but it was interesting when I look back, as I started to build my worth more and more people I was eliminating from my life. People, places, and things that no longer served me, that were not healthy. I started to not tolerate intolerable behavior. Didn't give a F who the hell it was. I stopped tolerating it. And now today, there's zero tolerance. And I have zero guilt around it.
How can us as the listeners get into that space more? Give us some tips.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this first, is that I could not have done it alone. It's not recommended to even do it alone. I recommend, if you're into conventional therapy, that's fine. If you're not, and you want, a coach of some sort to walk you through it, like myself, who understands and who's been there, I would recommend that, because doing it alone is very heavy. You do have to bring up a lot of stuff that you've,
It is
bottled
heavy.
down.
Yeah.
It's like having that beach ball and you've been pushing it underwater for so many years. And when you start to lift it up, I mean, it's intense. So the first thing I would say is, like, give yourself some grace. We're so hard on ourselves, especially women. I mean, we are so hard on ourselves that nasty inner critic in our brain, like put the bat down and give ourselves some grace. Like we're here on this earth for a reason. We're supposed to be here. We're a miracle that we are here. There's a lot of people who aren't here. So we are here for a reason, and hold on to something, even a sliver of that, and know that there are other women, you know, like yourself and like myself, who have come out on the other side, that it's possible. So I'd say feed yourself with podcasts, books, stories of women who have been through the shit and have come out the other side. It helps tell your brain what's possible versus, oh, I'm going to be stuck in this forever. My life will never be better. There's no hope for me. Helps tell your brain a different story. So I always say, like, facts, you know, facts trump everything. Facts help trump the brain. That's why I don't believe in affirmations that are too far-fetched. You know, someone who's in debt and you're saying, I am a millionaire. It's like, your brain is not that stupid.
Your brain's like, no, you're not.
Right. It doesn't work. So like, I couldn't have told myself when I had no self-worth, which, by the way, you guys, that was just 5 years ago. I couldn't have told myself, I love myself, I'm amazing. It wouldn't work. I wouldn't have believed it. But what I could tell myself were things like, I am working on learning to like myself every single day and every single way. Because then my brain's like, okay, that's fair. We are learning to like ourselves in every single way, every single day. So my brain was like, okay, that's true. And it held on to it. So when you use like affirmations or mantras, do a version that is true for you today. It doesn't need to be far-fetched, or it won't work. Your brain won't believe it. But I would keep repeating that. I'm on a journey to learning how to love myself. That's another one, because that is true. I was on a journey to love myself.
I would also like to say, though, when you first start professing affirmations and saying things, if you've been beating yourself up for a long time, it is going to feel unnatural. It is going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to take a little while to get used to it. Just like if you've been miserable and you haven't been smiling, you've got to start smiling to kind of tell yourself that you're happy. It does change your body chemistry just to smile.
Totally. And one thing that was the hardest for me, and I still catch myself to this day, is when someone would ask, you know, you go to like a Starbucks or something and, you know, they're like, oh, how are you today? Right. I would answer back, I'm okay. Just like that. Like, I'm okay. That was my standard answer. Or I'd say something even worse. I'd be like, I'm exhausted. It'd be a negative thing. I'm exhausted. Oh, I'm so exhausted. I'm so busy. I'm so tired. You know, that's how I would respond. So I still catch myself when I get asked this. Why am I saying I'm okay? It's like, so I'll say it took me a long time to get to even I'm good, and then to I'm great. And it's like, because my whole thing is, well, I didn't want to lie. If I felt like shit and I'm telling you I'm okay, like, I'm not even really telling you the truth. I'm not okay. I'm a mess, right? So what someone told me was, I don't remember who it was, but they're like, answer how you want to feel. It's not lying, but it's putting it out there of how you want to feel. And sometimes if we say how we want to feel and we act how we want to feel, like you said, smile even when you don't feel like it does change things. But that was very hard, and it's still hard. I mean, how many times a day do we get asked, how are you? Like by the cashier, by whomever, by your significant other. And I have to work on saying I'm great. Sometimes I have to pause and take a breath, or I'll say, you know what? I'm not sure. That's better to answer that way than for me to say a negative feeling. Does that make sense?
I really like to ask people what's new and good with you today, because it changes your focus.
I love that.
Then they start looking for something good, because I really feel like you get what you're looking for and what you're trying to find evidence for. So if you're looking for the good, you're going to find the good. It's just that glass is half empty or half full, flip the switch.
I love that. I wish more people asked me that. That's a great, I'm going to start asking people that. I'm going to borrow it from you. That's a wonderful question. That would probably shake people up too. Like, because everyone answers so robotically. When you say, how are you? It's like you even ask it robotically and no one even cares really what your answer is.
Yeah,
well,
they
most
don't.
People.
Don't give them too much info.
It's like, well, really I was just on my bathroom floor in a fetal position crying. It's like, no, they don't want to know.
They're like, oh no. What did I get myself into? There are some people that do, but it's just very few and far between that really want to know. Oh my gosh. So tell us your journey. Like, you quit CBS?
Yeah, I quit. I mean, like I said, I couldn't do it. I was going to have a nervous breakdown. And I also was like, where is this really going to take me making this amount of cash, eating top ramen every night? Like, what is this going to do for me? And so I quit. I left. I came back to Los Angeles and I was not in a mental state of having a job. So I went from being on TV to working at a doggy daycare on Ventura Boulevard, picking up dog shit.
Okay, good. Now, how did we transition out of that to multi-millions?
So I believe there are seasons in our life where we go into a cocoon. It's like a regrowth, and then we have to have a rebirth. We can't always be on this like upward trajectory, even though you guys see that in social media. And there's a lot of people who put that outward, perception there, but it's just not possible. We're not always going on the up, 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 nor is any business, not even like an Amazon, right? At some point, what goes up must come down. It's the law of polarity. Okay. If you're into the law of attraction, manifestation. So that was my season of going into a cocoon and healing. I saw so many people I knew get into the profession of pharmaceutical sales. And I've always been a lover of health and fitness. And so that's like, health oriented. They're getting a company car, making all this money, talking to doctors about health and medical stuff. And I was like, you know what? That sounds good to me. I mean, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. Remember, I wanted to be a newscaster since I was 13. Like, I never deviated. So I knew I was good at talking. I was very good at presenting. And so I went for it. I think I had an interview at like 38 different places before I got hired, most likely because I had no self-worth and you can't fake energy. And I was a good faker, like you were saying, you had a good facade going. I was a good faker, but you really can't fake energy. But thank God someone gave me a shot and I climbed the corporate ladder in pharmaceuticals until I kept hitting a glass ceiling, a white male dominated field. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, like this is frustrating. I keep hitting the ceiling. And I had one of my longtime physician clients say to me, you make millions and millions, tens of millions, in fact, dollars for these companies. Why don't you make that money for yourself? And I was like, what do you mean? Like be an entrepreneur? And he's like, yeah. Well, the last thing I wanted to be was an entrepreneur. That's what my mom was. And that's what my dad was. That didn't sound like a good thing because I associated being a business owner with bad things. And I was like, I don't know about all that. Like, who would buy from me? All the stuff that so many new business owners, or even, you want to be entrepreneurs, as I say, you want to be a business owner, go through, like, who would buy from me? And he's like, well, people already are wanting your services because I would help all these physicians and medical groups with their marketing plans and stuff just to build rapport. It would be for free. He's like, well, you already do that. Why don't you, make them charge you? And I go, you think they'll pay me? He said, yeah. Well, okay. That's great. I had one person who believed in me, which is great. That's all, you don't need, that's all you need, right? I was terrified of asking. Oh my God, I'm asking it because they weren't even strangers. I didn't want to be rejected by people I highly respected and spent years building rapport with. And, I finally asked, and it was yes after yes after yes, because I was staying in a niche that I was familiar with. I already had rapport built, and I had something they wanted, and I was good at it. And there was born my first company, TLC Enterprises, which I still have today. It's 11 years old. I'm in the pharmaceutical, medical, health supplement niche, and we do digital marketing and branding from everything from, supplements, protein powders, to actual pharmaceutical prescription drugs, to medical practices, dentistry, that kind of stuff. So that is my 7-figure company, very successful. But at a certain point, that wasn't lighting me up because that wasn't helping the women, right? That I so wanted to help. And that's why I started Project Me with Tiffany Carter about 1.5 years ago now. But it took me that long to create a personal brand. Number one, I was terrified to fail at something that I knew was my life's purpose. Was paralyzing to me. Number two, I believe in following divine guidance, and I had a lot more healing I had to do in order to show up as who I am today, authentic, real, and capable of holding space and helping people. And so we start when we start. I hear a lot of women go, oh, I wish I started 10 years ago. I wish I started when I was 30. Look at all these like young people doing all this stuff now, and now it's too late for me. It's not too late. It's your divine path. Whatever you believe in, the universe, angels, you're meant to start now. If that's when the inkling comes, it's now. You were meant to have whatever happened in your past. So I was meant to start when I started, and it blew up in a good way because it was in alignment. And it was needed, and I was clear. And in full discretion, I also came in it with 10 years of digital marketing experience, and I'm a professional communicator, right? So I'm not saying like everyone just blows up. I had skill sets that came into that played into it. But now I'm doing my true passion, which is helping women heal not only their self-worth, but their net worth, because they're totally tied together. And helping women actually make money doing something they love is it's such a beautiful thing to see women live their purpose and get paid well for it.
I love that. And don't you think, like, back, probably, I know when I was back in my situation, the things that you tell yourself, you really have to examine them. I thought that I was staying in the abusive marriage for my children so that I could raise them. I mean, I was the only one being abused, and it wasn't every day, of course. You tell yourself you get groomed, and then it becomes more often, and you tell yourself these stories. And I was just, until it hit home that it was turning towards my children. It was, that fear was the lie. It was not for my children, like, that is not helping my children when I'm living in this mess, And I remember when I got the courage, that's what gave me the courage, because I knew I had to do something. When my daughter is, telling a preschool teacher she didn't want to go home for whatever reason, and then the lady says, well, why not? And because he hits me, he kicks me, he yells at me, I need help. And this is from a preschooler. And I have no idea that this is happening until that moment. Then the choice has to be made. and I leave that situation behind. I've got to find a job. I had never worked full time in my entire life. And I knew in my heart I wanted to help women. And I had always been I believed in fitness because it just lifted you out of any mood, out of any depression, out of any state. And I felt empowered while I was doing it. And if anybody listens to my backstory, they'll also know that I thought it helped cheer people up since my mom was always depressed. And so, that's what I fell into. That's what I decided upon. And I remember, this is just like a full circle moment. I found fitness. I got to have a job. I'm in North Dakota and I'm teaching, you guys, on an Air Force base. They picked me. I'm pregnant. I decided I'm just going to go with it, though nobody ever exercised and taught fitness while they were pregnant back then.
Right.
I'm 57. So I was like, 20 or, I think 21 is when I had her. So I was 20 teaching. I'm pregnant. I'm teaching Jane Fonda fitness.
Oh, I'm dying. Did you have the leg warmers? I bet you did.
Yes, the leg warmers. I mean, I was teaching on the Air Force Base. It was just, and I think we even taught to her tape,
I'm sure you did.
And so I'm doing all this, and my baby, she's in the belly. She's just bouncing to the Jane Fonda beat, going up and down. And do you know my baby yesterday in New York City? See, because I left the bad situation, my baby is in a happy relationship. She is a New York City photographer, and her client yesterday was Jane Fonda.
No.
Yes, and she is photographing her. I mean, this was just so full circle.
That is crazy.
Isn't it? I was
That's
just
so cool.
Oh my gosh. And she said Jane, during the middle of the shoot, came over and gave her a big hug and said, You're doing such a good job. You're so good at your job. And, and then at the end, she loved her pictures so much. She got my daughter's phone number, got it for the PR person to take, because she loved the photos. And I just thought, see how that was a full circle? If I would have stayed in my mess, I don't think that would have ever occurred. So just whatever mess you might be in, I think just realize what beauty could come out of it if you get the faith and courage to just get out of it. Get out of it. Get out of it now. Don't overthink it. It's just getting out of that mess gives you a chance for real happiness.
Yeah. Like a quote I'm well known for saying is, healed people heal millions. And if you don't have the courage, the self-esteem yet, the worthiness to heal for yourself, heal for the woman who is still in the situation, heal for that woman's children, heal for, women in the future who are going to be in that situation. It's inevitable. Something greater than yourself. Because for me, I wasn't enough. I mean, you guys, little over 5 years ago on my birthday, I was either going to kill myself or something else happened. I had it all planned out. I was going to use pharmaceuticals. I knew what to do from my background. And what did I have in the bank at that time? I definitely had a couple million in the bank, luxury car, luxury townhouse in LA. I've traveled, traveling the world, exercise addict. So I'd, all into the fitness thing on the outside, looked the part. And I was I couldn't do it anymore. I was exhausted. And I was like, if this is what life is, I'm out. And I don't even know what happened. Only thing I can explain it for me personally is by the grace of God, I ended up in recovery room for people who suffer with things like exercise addiction, codependency, things like that. And I ended up literally in a 12-step recovery room on my birthday. And because I found out for the first time I wasn't alone, that was enough for me to not go home and kill myself that night. That's why it's so important we heal.
And I wouldn't be having this amazing conversation with you today as well. You know,
Yeah.
and just all the lives that you're impacting and affecting, and just getting through that situation and healing all the lives that I can impact and affect. And I just think you may not be in it like that kind of a drastic situation, but you know, I think the biggest thing and the reason why in my studio we have such transformation is that I talk to people about more than let's get on the bike, let's hit the equipment, let's eat good nutrition. It's about the weight you're carrying, like she was talking earlier. It was about all the weight she was carrying on the inside that was the problem. And you know, you may not be overweight, but you could still be carrying an extra burden that you don't need to carry.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can see it. I'm wondering if you can relate. I'm an empath, I'm an introvert, I'm highly intuitive, and I can spot someone who is either being abused or has had trauma. I can see their wounds very clearly, and I call them the walking wounded, and they come in all shapes and sizes. And I agree with you. The weight is heavy. You could be skinny, right? I was an exercise addict, so I wasn't skinny, but I was like really, really buff, right? Maybe they're anorexic like my mom is,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't
She's
know
carrying a burden too.
right. What's going on the inside. I mean, think about actually depriving yourself of nutrition and starving yourself. Would you do that to a child? No, that's abuse. It's just self-abuse. It's just amazing what happens that we end up abusing ourselves. Even people who are like, well, God, I didn't grow up in like a household like you guys, right? It's like, well, maybe you had a parent that maybe they drank, and then when they drank, they said nasty things. Or maybe you had a mom who was like mine, who was very jealous of you and made comments about your weight or did things like that. You carry that with you, and then that becomes the voice in your head. And if we don't work on reprogramming that, we're being controlled by these very people till the day we die. And I was like, fuck that. I'm taking this back. Whatever it takes, I'm taking my power back. I'm not letting them rule my entire life.
What do you think your coping mechanisms were when you were feeling virtually abandoned?
As a child or as an adult?
Well, let's start as a child when you're being sexually abused and nobody's doing anything about it. Not like in my regard, I told them I never had to, I mean, I saw the person every holiday, but I didn't have to hang out with them anymore. Like nothing was done. Like, so you really feel abandoned and all of your boundaries are violated. That's why I wasn't very good at setting them. So what was your,
Tell me about it.
you
Yeah.
know,
I had none. Well, you want something from me? Okay. Like, and then you end up attracting like every toxic energy vampire on the planet. Mine was because mine was daily and it was unavoidable. It's amazing what our minds do in order to protect us and keep us alive. So I have a lot of suppressed memories, a lot of things I don't remember, but my brain flipped it into, I would even call him my brother. I enjoyed the attention because I wasn't getting it from anywhere else. And I was taught that was love. I didn't enjoy the icky part, right? But I was like, well, that's the price to pay because that's what I was taught. There's a price to pay for everything. So I didn't have acting out coping mechanisms aside from with other boys because I had a very deep denial that trauma has a way of protecting ourselves. Of course, I was completely detached from my body, because that's another thing that happens. As I got older, I've tried everything. Drugs, exercise. The exercise thing came in very quickly, like starting at 14. Like anyone who's like remembers Bally's Total Fitness, like I hit up that Bally's. But I used fitness, men, a lot of things like negative excitement, not so much food, but I did try everything. Thank God I don't have the gene of a substance addict. I would be like dead in a pile of cocaine somewhere, because I was trying everything to escape, but it never took a hold on me, which thank God it didn't. I would, like I said, I'd be dead. But I tried everything. A lot of numbing out, a lot of TV, like extreme amounts of TV. Sometimes it would be sleep numb out, all different things. And there's still stuff to this day. When you're finding yourself, you guys, like in the scroll hole, as I call it, on social media, that's a form of dissociating. You're trying to avoid thinking and feeling of some sort. You're like incessantly binge watching, and it's not just like a special thing. You're avoiding something. Anything we're doing excessively that is not productive, healthy and serving, it is, you're hiding from something. And when I catch myself doing it now because of my recovery, I'll go, okay, what is it you need, Tiffany? What is it you need that would feel nurturing? And a lot of times it's simple. It's like, I need a nap. I need a hug, right? I don't need a piece of pie. I don't need chips. I mean, really, like that's what we like go for, those things. It's just like a temporary Band-Aid that ends up making us feel worse afterwards. Well, I used to eat like 3 cartons of Ben and Jerry's a week, but then I would like exercise it off. And all you fitness people know, you can't out exercise a good diet or bad diet. Well, I tried and I broke even, but I almost killed myself doing it.
Yeah, I bet.
I mean, that's a lot of calories, but I broke even.
So you're numbing out, you're doing all these things to escape reality. I think a lot of us can relate to that, because I think that we find maybe you're not getting along with your spouse, maybe you argue a lot, maybe, you know, maybe you're bored. I don't know. Like, you find these ways of escaping reality. And what should we do when we find ourselves wanting to escape reality then? What would your tips be?
The best thing to do is, first, it's awareness. And it's such a pattern. A lot of times we don't always catch ourselves. So now that you've heard this, right now you have some awareness, you might catch yourself. What the best thing is to check in with your body. How does it feel to be around these people? How does my body feel? If it's not good, you need to take a deeper look. How does my body feel scrolling incessantly on social media, comparing myself to other people? Does your breathing constrict? Do you feel heavier? Because your body doesn't lie, but our minds lie to us all the time, very cunning and manipulative. How do you feel after eating an entire bag of chips, right? How do you feel? How does your body feel? And it's okay. I mean, listen, I'm not saying to punish yourself, but you're checking in because your body will tell you who you should hang out with, what activities you should do, not do, what you should eat, you shouldn't eat. Our body is an amazing self-regulator. That doesn't mean sometimes you don't do it anyway. Believe me. Okay. No one's perfect. It's progress, not perfection. But the scroll hole is one of mine that I have to be very careful of because, right, this is my business. I have a personal platform. You guys should come over, say hi to me at Project Me with Tiffany on Instagram. I check my DMs 2 hours every single day, 7 days a week. That's my way of getting to know you better, building relationships with you. So come on over and say hi. And it's it's my business. There's pleasure in it. It's my way of serving. But if I'm not careful, Now another 2 hours went by, and pretty soon I'm looking at like a cat dancing, eating ice cream. It's like, what in the hell? How did I get here? Right. And then I'm like, oh my God, I fell into the scroll hole. Okay. Like, I'm not going to beat myself up, but it's time to put the phone down, go take a walk, go do something else, turn on a podcast, like, because we are going to slip. And if we beat ourselves up, that just creates more shame. So we've got to do something else. What can we do in place of? So even like with food, I will go like, let's say I really think I'm craving like chocolate. Maybe I am, right? I'll even bargain with myself like, well, let's drink like 2 big glasses of water. And then if you still want the chocolate, you can have it. And it's like, okay. And I bargain with myself. Usually I don't want it. And if I do, then I do. That's okay. Right. But I certainly am not like binging on it after handling it that way. So we have to self-regulate and self-monitor, but we're still human.
I think awareness is the first step.
Yeah.
Being aware of why you're doing what you're doing. And I think with me, I would get in that fright or flight response because I had been in it for so long. If somebody triggered that, then I either would be afraid. Now, fear would not be my go-to anymore, because if anybody once tried to intimidate me, that it does exactly the opposite these days, because I can't tolerate it anymore. But as far as flight, I would go run. If I wanted to run away,
oh, like
from
literally.
Yes. When I didn't want to feel something, I wanted to be away from something, I ran, because I ran away from it.
Wow. You
And
literally ran.
I literally ran. And when did I realize that? I realized it last year when I tore my hamstring, because I couldn't run away from things anymore. Because I couldn't run.
Since you couldn't run
I
away,
had to deal with them.
Oh my God, how uncomfortable was that?
Terrible.
And then where did you go? Because you had to have picked up another vice, because we all do.
I don't know what my vice would have been then. I don't know.
Sometimes it's overthinking, you guys. It's tricky. Sometimes it's that ruminating, that overthinking. It can be, obsessing over, weird shit. Like I have to organize my sock drawer, like just distracting yourself with tasks that aren't necessary, but you convince yourself they are. That is how clever our minds are. Anything to take us outside of ourselves and our discomfort. Because who wants to feel discomfort? But there is no way around the pain. You have to go through it. And what's waiting on the other side is fantastic. It's worth it.
I feel like what I did instead was I started dealing with things because I couldn't any longer run away from them.
Yeah.
That's the, really the essence of it.
You were forced.
I was forced. I was flat on my back. I was not allowed to do anything for 4 months.
Wow. It took away your main coping mechanism.
Yes.
That was done for you. And that's a great example of the shit that happens to us in our lives. Like I ruptured a disc and had emergency spine surgery. That was for me. That happened for me because I wasn't going to slow down otherwise, right?
Oh,
you weren't going to stop running.
I wasn't even close.
You would have been running at 90.
Yes. I mean, I completely competed with a fully blown hamstring. I didn't realize it was fully blown because they gave me misinformation, but it was completely gone.
Oh my God. You have a high pain tolerance.
Yeah. And mindset. So I was doing mindset, and I was, it was like a day before the event. So I went and did the whole event. So I just think that I would have kept going. I would have been, I pretty much drug that leg up until the day of surgery. So I think, yes, it was done for me. I needed to stop.
And look at how strong, self-willed your mind was to be. I mean, that sounds excruciating. That's that strong of holding on to your coping mechanism. This is no different than people who are addicted to shopping, exercise like I was, workaholics, a substance, relationship addicts, love addicts, sex addicts, women who are addicted to, there's a lot of women addicted to cleaning, believe it or not, and it's holding, you are holding on to that coping mechanism for dear life. And thank God the universe took it away from you.
Well, I still held on to it because then I got back up and I was going to do another I did one. I had a little bit of a injury, but it wasn't bad enough. So I put everything on the chill. And then it was 9 weeks ago, I tore my groin because I was practicing routine. I was not giving up fitness competing. So I tore my groin completely, just like I tore my hamstring from the bone. And so I really had to say, okay, I really have to look at this. What is going on with me and why am I holding on to this so tightly?
Wow. Yeah. If we don't surrender, a power greater than ourselves will make us, and we don't listen, then you're going to get shouted at. It'll flatline you. And I completely can relate because I'm filled with self-will and I'm tenacious and I will, I'm a survivor like you. Like I always say, like I do a lot of business coaching with people who are survivors because I say like attracts like. And I always say, you know what, survivors of any kind of abuse or trauma, they're the most resilient women and they make amazing business owners. Because when someone tells you no, especially if you've done the healing work, that's not the worst thing that's happened to us, right?
Right.
It's like we can handle a lot, but it's so amazing what happens for us. Yeah, like by the time I was 30, I had $1 million in the bank, and in 3 months, almost all of it was gone. That was done for me. I wasn't listening. That had to happen. And I couldn't blame anyone but myself. It was like I was the common denominator. And it sounds like that's what you're saying. Like there's nothing, no finger pointing. It was like, what the hell's going on here, right?
And like you said, resilience, oh my gosh, you're just hitting everything that some of the lessons I think that I was learning over that time. Just the survivor instinct. I mean, above all else, like you have that grit, but I just feel like I was being pulled in a new direction and I wasn't listening. And I was having a hard time letting go and hanging on to the persona that I carried. And once I finally surrendered, which I really had to, I think I finally am starting to get it. I don't think the lesson is done yet. I think I'm just going to understand it a little more on the other side. But I felt like God was directing me in a new direction, and it was a greater purpose than what I was doing.
I so believe that, because the plan is really already laid out. We're just living it out. When we think that we're in control of it, that's when we get insane and we get quote unquote stuck.
I got stubborn.
Yeah. And
I was not just giving it up.
Yeah. And it's already laid out for us. It's so much easier when we actually follow that intuition and divine guidance. But it takes work to be there, especially when you were never taught trusting yourself, trusting others, trusting a higher power. Why in the hell would you trust that everything is being laid out for you as it's supposed to be, and beautifully, right? Beautifully messy. Well, how would I have trusted that when there was no semblance of trust my entire life? So I wasn't able to get there until I learned to trust myself.
And believe me, the calling I've been getting and had been getting has been super strong. So many signs but I think I was just finding it hard to trust because I couldn't see the other side of that. And I think sometimes, athletes and just people in general, you have a persona of what you think you are, and you hide behind that, or you have a hard time letting go of that when it's time to transition on to something else. But I think when you are letting go of the thing, you can fully step into your power, what you're really supposed to be doing. And I don't know if I want to say supposed to be, but just your real purpose here on earth.
God, I just got like a divine download when you were talking. And I really believe in this, you guys, because things don't just like pop into your head randomly for no reason. I still have all of my, I call them corporate costumes, all of my suits from, being in corporate America because, I do have to go to corporate meetings and stuff like that, but I have all these, I have all these suits and I don't remember the last time I wore them. Who knows if they even fit? And they're in my closet. And I just got the divine download because if you were talking about like letting go, and it was like, you need to donate those and let those go. How random is that?
That's
And
awesome.
that means it's time. There's something there that I need to let go, and I'm not going to like question it. I'm just going to do it. It's going to the Battered Women's Society, which by the way is a fantastic place to donate any clothes, especially professional clothes, because like yourself, a lot of women who have to leave abusive situations, a lot of times they've never worked because abusers don't really want you to work or have money.
Oh my
So
gosh. Oh my gosh. The last dollar, he would take the last dollar out of my wallet.
of
And I
course.
think that's why to this day it has been so important to me. Though I've been married now for 25 years to my new husband. It's still important to me to have my own bank account, my own money, my own job. It's just after living like that, I was just not ever gonna live like that again.
I'm with you. I will always have my own account. I actually don't even have a joint account with my fiance. It's not that I don't trust him. Um, it's in fact the opposite. I do trust him to be a steward of his own money, and I'm a steward of my own money. But that's why I'm so passionate about teaching women how to make money for themselves and not depend on any man, woman, institution, job, because that is so freeing when you make your own money doing something that you're proud of doing. It's so empowering, and it also gives you a sense of like safety and security. I can walk away at any time. I do not have to be with anybody. And I like that.
Well, I think it is really important because this is the one thing that I really learned. And I remember I was going to church. They just kept on saying, well, you need to do this or this or this, versus it was all on me that I was needing to do something, until I went to the one that said, I think you need to get a job so that you can make decisions from an independent standpoint versus a dependent standpoint. And that changed everything, because once I was empowered, that's what they don't want you to be if they're an abuser. Once I was empowered, it enabled me to realize I could do it. And once I did it, I was like, why did I wait so long to do it? And it just gave me the confidence. See, then I didn't settle anymore. It gave
Absolutely.
me the confidence that I could make it on my own no matter what. I didn't need somebody to, I don't know if I want to say lean on, but I didn't need anyone to make it. So
Right.
therefore, I'm not going to put up with BS.
This is so awesome. I'm like, I love that all you guys are hearing just, from two women who've been through the shit and we've come out the other side. And I have a feeling you guys know, like, that my story is real. I'm very transparent about everything. And it's like, just know that whatever you're in, there is another side. What's the catch? There is a catch to everything. The catch is the work. You've got to deal with the pain. You know, like you said, like the weight. You do have to deal with that. There is no way around it. That's the catch.
The only way is through.
Yeah, believe me, I tried all the ways around. I mean, I
you
don't
have to
know
go
if
through
there's
the
any
fire.
ways I didn't try, and none of them worked.
What in the world was that? Hang on, guys. Momentary lapse here. Okay, there we go. It repeated back to me.
Oh, really? I didn't hear anything.
I was like, where did that come from? There's a voice coming down from the heavens. No. But yeah, the only way out really is through when you're in a situation like that. And I think the biggest thing is when you stand up to the things you're afraid of, they diminish. I mean, when I stood up to the 6'4" giant, whatever giant is in your life, it could just be a mean boss. It could be, who knows, you know, a mean family member. When you're no longer afraid, that's when you have the power. That's when you have the power. It's when you're being bullied and intimidated, and you're allowing that, because you really do have the power to not allow that.
I agree. I mean, it could be your own children who are bullying you. I see that a lot. And, you know, people do what you allow them to do. You know, we teach people how to treat us, and it might be just innocently and subconsciously because of how you were raised. But you can shift that at any time. People don't like it that are in your life when you shift from being a people pleaser and an enabler to a hell knower.
Oh no, they do
They
not.
do not like it. I only have one person still in my life from pre 5.5 years ago, aside from my mom, which we don't count that, but I only have one person in my life that was existed before. They were all toxic. They had to be let go of. And some of them went on their own because it wasn't enabler Tiffany anymore. It wasn't people pleaser Tiffany anymore. And therefore they couldn't get what they wanted out of me.
Well, it's just like with takers. When you stop giving, they go away.
Yep, they do. They get mad and then they still try to get it. And then, or some of them just go away and they go find someone
Somebody
who isn't
else
healed.
to get it from.
They always find someone else. And I really believe takers can sniff out the overgivers.
Well, yeah, for sure. They use it against you. And once you recognize that, you're like, that person doesn't really care how they're making me feel. Why am I giving them so much of my peace of mind? And why am I people pleasing so much? And once you start, what are you taking care of you? What about you? Who's taking care of you? You start taking care of you and you stop people pleasing. Those people, they go away, like for real. It just disappear.
I really believe those of us who are overgivers, and overgiving, what I mean by that is it's out of fear, obligation, or guilt. It's not out of true service. Overgivers do it because we so badly want to be poured into ourselves. So we're hoping by giving so much, someone will fucking actually give to us. And then we get hurt, pissed, sad, and upset when they don't, because we're trying to get, milk from a hardware store. These people aren't going to pour into us. They don't know how.
And
that's not their makeup.
You could just be an overgiver and just everybody's just taking. And I think the thing that really helped me with this was Adam Roa. He has this poem, "You Are the One You've Been Waiting For." Like basically, why aren't you pouring into you? Why aren't you pouring into you? Why aren't you taking care of you? I think once you really recognize that you're not pouring into you and that's where the work needs to be done, it is life-changing.
That's beautiful. I love that. And that's true. we can give to ourselves. We actually don't need to turn to anything else other than, you know, like our spirituality, in order to get what we need. Because when we do that, now we're no longer needy. We no longer have that energy. Like, I don't look at my fiance as, I don't depend on him to give me something that I can't give myself. It's just gravy when he does.
And I think too, when you're too needy, you repel what it is you're actually seeking.
Oh yeah, and business too. Business, friendship, relationships. It like I said in the beginning, you cannot fake energy and people can smell it. I can smell I don't like it when people are needy to me. I get very uncomfortable. And I always think about, God, I used to be so needy. I made people feel like this.
I mean, this is my last story because we were going on, you guys, but because this is such a good conversation today. But I remember teaching aerobic classes at Body Dynamics. It was one of my first places where I was in the throes of it. It was packed. People would mark their step where they put their step. They would like fight over it. There was no room in the house. You had to mark it or people would get in fights. And so that was my little stage on the step. And I just remember when I first started, I was just thrown in as the coordinator and they were used to this other person. I almost said their name. Thank God I did. I try to keep names out of this. And it was like I was getting tomatoed because I wanted them to like me. I wanted their respect. I wanted these things. And I would just teach and teach, and I'd go home and work, and I'd practice, Girl would come in, she'd stay there for 1 minute, flip her hair, and walk out the door. And it was just like, she was like throwing tomatoes at me. And I'd go home, and finally I just remember I cried because I was just like, why don't they like me? Why don't they like me? Why did they do this? Why do they keep doing this? And my husband said, because they can. See, I being a nice person wouldn't be thinking like that. I wouldn't think of doing that to somebody, but it was like this power trip. I was giving it to them basically. And because they can, because they could.
Yeah. And because a part of you needed them to.
Exactly. So, yes. And so one day I remember flip that switch. I looked over at the lady and I thought, why don't you just get this over with so we can get down to having a good class? Just walk out. I just didn't care. I mean, I was at that point where I was over it. I was just leave because we're all going to have a good class. Just get it done, get your drama done and walk out. And after that, she was in the front row every week.
Oh, funny.
Class. Then she hired me to personal trainer.
Oh my God. How funny is that?
Right? She sought me out when she had a baby and I was even at another gym. She hired me. She wanted me to get her back in shape before she went to her corporate job. So, it's funny, right? Wow. So I just think that the energy you're putting out and what you're needing, sometimes you need to give to yourself.
Yep. I agree.
100%. Wow. So this has been an awesome conversation today with Tiffany. And she has a freebie for you guys. It's going to be a quiz. And can you kind of tell them a little bit about that?
Yeah, I just created this free quiz. It's going to help you find out what is stopping you from making the money that you desire and deserve. And I'm so interested in hearing what you guys get. So all you have to do is go to projectmewithtiffany.com. So projectmewithtiffany.com, you'll see it right at the top, take quiz. And you guys can take a screenshot, share it on social media, share what you got. It's really insightful because I get that question a lot. Why am I not making what I want to make? What am I doing wrong? Right? And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make a quiz around it to give you some perspective on what your role is in it, because you're the common denominator. So that is my gift to you guys.
What are 3 tips you want to give our females out there to break free and break through?
To break free and break through, I would say 1, I want you to immediately unfollow, unfriend, mute accounts that don't make you feel good. Anything. If there's a book you're reading and it doesn't make you feel good, you don't have to finish it. A magazine, a podcast, unless it's mine. No, I'm just kidding. If a person, an exercise class, leave. We have one shot here at this earth. You could be gone in 10 minutes from now. Don't spend it doing something that does not, that does not fill you. The second thing is, no is a complete sentence. Start getting comfortable and practice saying no to things that you truly do not want to do. If it is not for fun or for free, you are doing it out of integrity. And would you really want someone doing something for you or saying yes to an invite that really was dreading it and didn't want to be there? I know I wouldn't. So that's the second one, is practice saying no. And it does take practice. And the third thing is put the bat down. Saying all this critical stuff, that critical inner parent that we have, put the bat down. Even just talk back to it. Doesn't even have to be nasty. Just say like, okay, I hear you. Thank you. That's not true. And start talking back with it. Yeah, you'll look a little nuts, but so what? Sometimes I do it out loud. Sometimes I do it in my head. That's going to start. Those are baby steps to start reprogramming things, because what we tell ourselves is just awful, especially as women. It's just horrible. And that's a way to start.
I love it. Those are great tips. I think that's going to have to be our audiogram.
Yay.
And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. And I just want to acknowledge you for just everything you've been through and what a light you are to others, how you've come through and you're giving back.
Thank you for saying that. I feel the same way about you. I'm appreciative of all the work you've done, so you are able to share your story, because there aren't that many of us.
Thank you. Thank you. And where can everybody reach you on social media so they can get in touch with you?
Sure. It's really easy. Everything is at Project Me with Tiffany. Everything. My website, projectmewithtiffany.com, Facebook, projectmewithtiffany.com, Pinterest, projectmewithtiffany.com, my podcast, projectmewithtiffany.com. So that is the way to reach me. And again, I check my messages for 2 hours every single day, answering questions, getting to know you better. So feel free to, reach out and introduce yourself. Share some of your story. I would love to meet you guys.
And if you need any money tips, because I'm sure most people are probably doing podcasts surrounding her acumen, her business acumen, she gives great tips on just increasing your net worth. Well, of course, your self-worth comes first, but on her podcast. So I would definitely check that out, you guys. It's worth a listen. And we want to thank you for listening today to the Sisterhood of Sweat. Bye, everybody.
Bye.